Let's start with a simple question. Why does a movie about giant robots punching interdimensional sea monsters still feel more creative than half the blockbusters released today? Pacific Rim, directed by Guillermo del Toro, premiered in 2013, and on the surface, it looks like the cinematic equivalent of smashing action figures together in a bathtub. Which, to be fair, it absolutely is. But that's also exactly why it works. Because while modern blockbusters often attempt to convince audiences they are carefully engineered mythologies, Pacific Rim embraces a much simpler philosophy. What if imagination came first? This film is loud, sincere, ridiculous, emotional, and strangely philosophical all at the same time. It's a movie that understands something fundamental about storytelling. Audiences don't just want spectacle. They want spectacle with soul. And beneath all the metal fists and collapsing skyscrapers, Pacific Rim quietly tells a story about grief, connection, and the strange miracle of two minds learning to move as one. Because when the world begins to fall apart, humanity's greatest weapon might not be technology, it might be empathy. And despite its enormous scale, Pacific Rim builds its story around deeply human characters. Each one represents a different response to trauma, responsibility, and hope. Played by Charlie Hunnam, Riley Beckett is the film's reluctant hero. But what makes Riley compelling isn't heroism, it's grief. At the beginning of the film, Riley and his brother Yancey pilot the Jaeger Gypsy Danger together. Their partnership is effortless, almost instinctual. Through the drift, they operate like a single organism, two minds sharing one purpose. Then, the kaiju attacks. Yancey dies, and Riley survives. Survivor's guilt becomes Riley's defining psychological burden. The drift is not just a mechanical system. It is a bond built on trust, memory, and emotional openness. Losing his brother means losing the one person who truly understood him. So Riley retreats. He abandons the Jaeger program and disappears into a mundane life building coastal walls designed to keep the kaiju out. A job that quietly symbolizes humanity's growing pessimism. The walls represent defeat. The Jaegers represented hope. When Riley is asked to return to the fight, the real battle isn't against the kaiju. It's against the belief that he cannot replace what he lost. Riley's arc is about rediscovering purpose after trauma, accepting that while some bonds cannot be replaced, new ones can still be forged. Played by Rinko Kikuchi, Mako Mori is arguably the emotional center of Pacific Rim. Her childhood was defined by catastrophe. As a young girl, she witnessed the kaiju destroy her city and kill her family. The film shows this memory through one of its most haunting sequences. A small child wandering through the ruins of a destroyed world while an enormous monster looms above. She is rescued by Stacker Pentecost, but rescue doesn't erase trauma, it reshapes it. Mako grows up within the Jaeger program, disciplined, focused, and driven by a quiet fury that she keeps tightly controlled. She trains relentlessly because she believes that becoming a pilot is the only way to reclaim power over the event that defined her childhood. But Mako's challenge isn't strength, it's emotional containment. When she first enters the drift, her traumatic memories overwhelm the neural link. The intensity of her past threatens to destabilize the system entirely. Her arc is about learning that trauma cannot simply be suppressed. It must be acknowledged and integrated. Only when she accepts her past without letting it dominate her does she truly become capable of piloting a Jaeger. Played by Idris Elba, Stacker Pentecost is the commander of the Jaeger program. But Pentecost is not merely a military leader. He is a man carrying the weight of an entire species' survival. Unlike the younger pilots, Pentecost has already seen the war's early victories and its devastating losses. He knows that humanity's chances are dwindling. The Jaeger program is failing. Governments have lost faith. Resources are disappearing. Yet Pentecost refuses to surrender. His leadership is defined by stoicism, a calm determination that masks the enormity of the responsibility he carries. He understands something crucial about morale. People do not fight effectively when they believe defeat is inevitable. So Pentecost becomes the embodiment of resolve. His famous speech before the final battle, "Today we are canceling the apocalypse," isn't just motivational rhetoric. It's an act of psychological warfare against despair itself. Pentecost knows the odds. He simply refuses to accept them. Hannibal Shao might initially appear to be comic relief, but his character reflects a very real human behavior during crises. Adaptation through opportunism. Shao runs a black market trading kaiju organs, valuable biological materials used for pharmaceuticals, technology, and exotic products. While governments struggle to save civilization, Shao is asking a simpler question: how can I profit from this? His character represents capitalism operating in its purest form. Where others seek catastrophe, he sees opportunity. And strangely enough, this perspective is not entirely irrational. Throughout history, every crisis has produced both heroes and entrepreneurs. Shaw simply occupies the second category. Dr. Newton Geisler represents one of humanity's most powerful traits, curiosity. Newton is fascinated by the kaiju, not simply as enemies, but as biological and intellectual mysteries. Where soldiers see monsters, Newton sees questions. This curiosity drives him to perform one of the most reckless experiments in the film, drifting with a kaiju brain. The result is both horrifying and enlightening. Newton discovers that the kaiju are not random creatures. They are weapons engineered by an alien intelligence testing humanity's defenses. Newton's character illustrates a paradox of scientific progress. Curiosity can save the world, but it can also endanger it. Every discovery pushes humanity closer to understanding the enemy, while simultaneously exposing them to greater risks. Hermann Gottlieb serves as Newton's intellectual counterbalance. Where Newton is spontaneous and emotionally driven, Hermann is precise and analytical. He believes in predictability, numbers, patterns, probability. Hermann spends much of the film analyzing kaiju attack patterns, attempting to forecast their movements mathematically. This creates a fascinating contrast between the two scientists. Newton trusts instinct, Hermann trusts logic. Together they represent the two essential engines of human discovery, innovation and analysis, creativity and structure. Their partnership reminds us that progress rarely emerges from a single mindset. It comes from the friction between different ways of thinking. Chuck Hansen is the cocky Australian pilot of the Jaeger Striker Eureka. At first glance, Chuck appears to be a classic action movie archetype, confident, aggressive, dismissive of others. But beneath the bravado lies something more complicated. Chuck has grown up in the shadow of war. From a young age, he has been trained to pilot Jaegers alongside his father. In many ways, arrogance becomes his emotional defense mechanism. Confidence allows him to suppress fear. Cockiness allows him to avoid vulnerability. But the drift makes emotional concealment impossible. To pilot a Jaeger effectively, Chuck must share his mind with another person, which means his insecurities cannot remain hidden forever. Thus, Chuck represents a particular kind of courage, the kind that develops in people who were forced to grow up too quickly. Herc Hansen is Chuck's father and co-pilot, where Chuck is explosive and impulsive. Herc is measured and disciplined. He is a veteran of countless battles against the kaiju, and his experience has taught him something that younger pilots often struggle to accept. Victory is never guaranteed. Herc represents generational responsibility. He is a father who must fight beside his son in a war where survival is uncertain. This dynamic creates a subtle emotional tension. Herc wants Chuck to become stronger, but he also wants him to survive. And in a conflict where Jaeger pilots frequently die, those two goals are not always compatible. The film's visual effects are ambitious and unapologetically bold. The kaiju themselves are not generic monsters. Each one feels biologically distinct, featuring glowing organs, unusual textures, and strange anatomical features. They resemble something closer to interdimensional wildlife than traditional movie creatures, albeit wildlife with extremely poor manners. However, the true achievement of the CGI lies in its sense of scale. Throughout the film, cargo ships appear tiny beside Jaegers. Buildings collapse like cardboard structures. Entire city blocks feel like toys being rearranged by enormous forces. The movie occasionally emphasizes the scale with moments of delightful absurdity. For example, in one scene a Jaeger quite literally picks up a cargo ship and uses it as a weapon. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. An actual cargo ship. This raises several practical questions. Somewhere there must have been a strategic planning session in which someone suggested that international shipping vessels could function as emergency melee weapons. Surprisingly, the scene works because the film fully commits to its spectacle. It never pauses to justify the moment. It simply presents the image and trusts the audience to enjoy it. A key technical decision helps make the visual effects believable. Most of the major battles occur in environments filled with rain, ocean spray, fog, darkness. At first glance, this might appear to hide the CGI. In reality, it serves a much more effective purpose. These elements create visual texture within each scene. Rain streaks across the frame. Water splashes against the Jaegers. Waves crash around the kaiju. These layers help blend digital creations into the environment, giving the action a sense of realism and depth. In practical terms, The film is quietly applying a clever rule. If enough chaotic elements exist in the frame, the human brain stops questioning whether the giant robot is real. And, remarkably, it works. Guillermo del Toro has spent much of his career exploring stories involving monsters and fantastical creatures. Importantly, he approaches these creatures not merely as threats, but as imaginative designs. That enthusiasm is visible throughout the film. The kaiju are not interchangeable antagonists. They are detailed organisms with unique appearances and movements. Similarly, the Jaegers function almost like characters themselves. Each robot has its own identity. Some designs appear bulky and industrial, others look sleek and technologically advanced. The camera reinforces their presence through deliberate framing. Low-angle shots frequently make the Jaegers appear monumental, as if the viewer is looking up at moving skyscrapers. Rather than filming machines, the movie often feels like it is filming moving monuments. Despite its outlandish premise, Pacific Rim maintains a remarkably consistent tone. The concept itself is undeniably ridiculous. Giant robots, interdimensional sea monsters, pilots connected through neural mind links. However, the film treats these ideas with complete sincerity. The characters never question the absurdity of their situation. Within their world, the stakes are existential. Humanity faces extinction, and the solution happens to involve building enormous machines designed specifically to punch the apocalypse in the face. Because the film never mocks its own premise, the story becomes strangely convincing. Confidence, it turns out, can make even the most improbable ideas feel believable. Modern blockbuster filmmaking is often polished and technically impressive, but it can also feel cautious, carefully engineered to appeal to the widest possible audience. Pacific Rim feels different. It feels like a director sat down with a simple goal. What if we made the coolest thing imaginable? And then everyone involved agreed to try. The result is not a subtle film, but it is undeniably creative. And sometimes creativity is exactly what audiences are looking for. Especially when that creativity involves solving global crises by hitting monsters with boats, which from a purely engineering standpoint may still be one of the most imaginative uses of maritime infrastructure ever proposed. 13 years later, Pacific Rim remains distinctive because it refuses to dilute its identity. Every Jaeger design is unique. Every kaiju has personality. The world feels handcrafted rather than algorithmically assembled. It's a film driven by vision, not formula, and that authenticity resonates because audiences can tell when a story was made by someone who genuinely loved the idea behind it. At its core, Pacific Rim isn't just about giant robots fighting monsters. It's about something far more human. It's about connection, about grief, transformed into courage, about strangers learning to trust each other with their deepest memories, and about the stubborn belief that cooperation might be the one force powerful enough to save us from extinction, which is a profound message for a movie that also features a robot beating a monster with a cargo ship. But that's the magic of Pacific Rim. It proves that even the loudest stories can carry meaningful ideas, and sometimes the most imaginative films are the ones brave enough to take absurd premises completely seriously. And if you somehow made it through this discussion about giant robots punching sea monsters, congratulations. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing for more cinematic overthinking. Because here we believe in asking the simple questions. Questions like, why humanity built robots to fight sea monsters, instead of simply moving further inland. Thanks for watching.